Hi, everybody. I hope everybody's having a good day wherever they are. Like I say in all my videos, I'm not responsible if anybody gets hurt, and sometimes I swear. Today, I'm making a video about how I think Nick Reiner is evil, and I think he was a bad seed to begin with, in my thoughts and my feelings. I saw a thing on other channels how he mistreated his parents and family members, and interviews where he looked like, I think even when he was young, he was a bad seed. He would, give people looks. His acting sucked. I saw him doing that acting. He was, you know, and I don't think he could act with a crap, to tell you the truth. I thought he sucked when it came to his acting. You put your thoughts below if you want, what you thought of his acting. I think he couldn't act with a crap. His father could. I think he was jealous of his father. The thing is, I think he was, because I'm going to say this a lot, and I might repeat myself. He was even bad. There was a woman who was a yoga instructor, and she wrote a book about Nick, how he wanted all the attention. He was a spoiled brat. Even before he did all these drugs, he wanted the attention, and if he didn't get it, he would throw a fit and act like Veruska Salt. And you know what happened to her? She went down garbage. So I'm not saying that these people have a right, he had any right to kill him, kill his parents, which totally no, but they enabled. I made a previous video about them enabling him to get bad behavior, because they didn't say Holly ever said no. And maybe by the end of the time, no, it was too late, because he would do drugs, and they didn't, they tried to take him to rehab, but but he refused, and they didn't set out the law, and they did take him. He was homeless, but only for a short time. There was no really rules, hardly any rules in the household. You have to have rules, because if you don't have rules, people would take advantage. He suckered them, and then he told the doctors that his parents weren't good parents, and how and then Rob said on an interview, which pissed me off, saying that he knew his son better than he did. The therapists don't know anything. And I'm thinking, maybe he did, but you're not doing tough love for him, and he's treating you like shit. Like I said, sometimes I swear. But he did. He treated his parents like shit, and it was like living. And he was probably laughing at them behind their back, thinking, God, I'm taking advantage of them. And he took drugs from different doctors, prescription drugs, probably. And he was like the dog, like Rob Reiner was the dog. He would say, all right, you're gonna go to this thing, and I'm not gonna pay for your drugs, but then he did it anyway. So he was like, Rob Reiner was like the boy who cried wolf. You have to do this, but then he let his son get away with stuff. So he didn't really do a lot of discipline. It wasn't very hard on Nick. You have to be hard. I think Michelle tried to be the disciplinary, and his sister and brother wondered. I wonder if they ever came up to their parents and said, why aren't you disciplining Nick? Why don't you say something to him? We're tired of this enabling, like I said in the previous video. Because you have to set, like I keep on saying, you have to set boundaries. If you don't, the bad things are going to happen. They were mentally abused. I don't know if they were physically abused. No one says that. But he threw stuff at his, the house that he was staying at, which is terrible. And, they should have called the cops on him, because he was terrible to them. And they were afraid of him. That's what his sister said. They were afraid of him. Michelle, and were afraid of Nick. So, you know, you have to set boundaries. You know, if they kept, like I said before, if he gets kicked out and he's homeless, so be it. You know, and they should have taken his credit cards, like I said, and, you know, not have him have a $10,000 thing. He's an adult. He should have got a job, you know, even if it's working at his father's place, even though he was retired. Or he could have got some, he gave him connections and he blew it. You know, he thought everybody owed him. There was a guy on YouTube that he went for, he asked for some guy to help him, and he treated the staff at the restaurant like crap. They got the wrong meal, and he treated them like crap. And when he went to the O'Brien, you know, before all the, you know, his parents got killed, he treated people terribly there, like he was on a drug bender, and he was out of it, like, you know, because you can see when in people's eyes when they're on drugs or on drinking or whatever. Even if he wasn't on drugs, I think he was always a bad seed, you know, the bad person, and the parents, you know, enabled him, like I said, and he was always going to be one. I think even, you know, I heard a thing that he wasn't forced into high school, going to school. They homeschooled him, and when he didn't want to go to homeschooling, he threw a tantrum and he didn't want to go to school, and then they homeschooled him, you know, and I don't think he even graduated high school. So he's bad seed. They didn't discipline, which you got to discipline and put boundaries, you know. You can't have the umbilical cord. And like I said, if he would have gone homeless, let him be homeless and see what it's like to be out on the street, or go into a shelter and have to be in a shelter and see what it's like. And now I don't feel sorry that he's in prison. In my opinion, he should get the death penalty, but I know that's not going to happen. Very doubtly. He's not going to treat the people, you know, he's going to be entitled. I think he's in not general population, I said right now. I think he's just in a cell looking, and some people say he's going to feel sorry for what he did. I don't think he's ever going to admit he did something wrong. You know, it's too late. When you kill someone, it's too late to say you're sorry. You destroyed the family. He destroyed his family. His, you know, he murdered his siblings' parents. You know, the ones that gave birth to you. The only ones that loved you. They tried to love him the best way, and it was, I think they did too much in enabling him, mainly Rob, because, like I said, Michelle tried to set boundaries, and it didn't work out. You know, he was a bad seed to begin with. You know, if you have someone who's narcissistic and psychopath or sociopath, bad things, not all people who take drugs end up murdering people. You know, I see it on all the time on YouTube videos. People don't take that. And they say he's mental ill. Mental ill people don't always kill people. You know, not always. You know, some people probably might, but you know, he was mental ill. You know, I haven't heard anything like this since Charles Manson and Jeffrey Dahmer. They were terrible people too. They were born that way, and I think he was born this way too. And plus, they enabled him. So if you enable and never put down boundaries and rules, you're going to turn out to be. You have a better chance of turning out to be narcissistic, with psychopath and sociopath. And till my next video about Nick or other subjects, take care and bye.